Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's webinar session, first in our Personal Wellness and Professional Success series called Power of Confidence in Personal Branding, featuring SJC alumnus John Fitzgerald. Before we start, please make sure that you can see and hear us clearly on your computer, phone, or tablet. You can open the chat box by clicking on the chat icon. To hear audio for the webinar, click on the phone icon. This is only if you haven't already dialed in via the email instructions that we have given you. My name is Dee Kaler. I'm the Associate Director of Alumni Engagement at St. Joseph's College, Brooklyn. I'll be your host for this session, along with my colleagues from Alumni Engagement, Paige Carbone and Taryn Kutujian. We'll be here to answer your questions as you enjoy this experience. Okay, one moment so we can start our slideshow. Perfect. So just a little housekeeping before we get started. Please note that a recorded version of this webinar will be available on our website. We will be sharing the presentation slides with all the participants and sending out a survey for your feedback and thoughts following the webinar. If you have any questions, kindly hold on to them. We will be addressing them at the end. Make sure to open the chat box by clicking on the chat icon and typing your questions into the chat box. Throughout this live session, we would also love to hear from you on social media, so please feel free to connect and chat with us through Twitter and Facebook. Our Twitter and Facebook handles is @SJCNY_alumni. If you hashtag, please use hashtag SJCwebinar, hashtag SJConnect, or hashtag SJCNY. I now would like to introduce today's presenter, John Fitzgerald, as Vice President, ESPN Multimedia Advertising Sales. He began his career with Walt Disney at the ABC Radio Network in 1996. He joined ESPN 20 years ago as an ad sales account executive for ESPN Audio. After 12 years with ESPN Audio, he became Vice President of Ad Sales and Sales Marketing for ESPN Deportes, where he's responsible for the day-to-day management of ESPN's multimedia advertising sales within the U.S. John holds a bachelor's degree from St. Joseph's College and a master's degree from CUNY Hunter in English Literature. He and his wife, Lori, and their 2 children live in Queens and New York City. So for those of you who are just joining us, welcome. Our presenter, John, will be discussing why confidence matters and the importance of having a personal brand for career success. So now, without further ado, I will turn the time over to John.
Thank you, Dee. Just a couple things before we get started. One, my head is really not that fat, so if that was disconcerting to any of you on the phone, I apologize. Second, as part of St. Joseph's College, I'd like to think that I'd be open to helping anyone. So if beyond this webinar, if there's any questions you may have, Dee has my information. I'd have no issues with talking to anybody personally. And 3, in my role, I do a fair amount of presenting, both in small and large groups, but I don't do a lot of join me presenting. So if any technical issues happen here, I apologize ahead of time. That said, I thank you for the opportunity to share my thoughts on personal branding today. I thought we'd begin with a basic understanding of what branding is. So a brand itself is anything that separates one thing from another. It is what makes it special, and how special it is a lot to do with how valuable it is. Your personal brand is what makes you unique and special, and that is what makes you valuable in your career. I'll be utilizing quotes from those who have achieved tremendous success in creating a brand around their vision. No one is the same. The journey will be all of our own, but many have taken this journey before, and there's much to learn. So let's look at the above statement from Oprah Winfrey. I've come to believe that each of us has a personal calling that is unique as a fingerprint. Here is a woman who has achieved immense success as a media mogul and businesswoman. When asked about what she hoped to achieve, she rarely mentions wanting to create a show, a magazine, a network, a book club. She talks about this idea of leading people to feel more, know more, and be the best they can be. A local radio show in Tennessee and then a local television show in Chicago was where she found the opportunity to express that vision, her brand first. And she found a unique ability in herself to connect with people and help them be the best that they can be. Over time, she took what was unique about her and created value in a series of mediums thus the show, the magazine, the network, the book club, so forth and so on. What's unique about each of us, and how can we master that? So how do we begin to define our brand regardless of where we are with our careers? We start with each of us. Who are we, and what makes us unique? Let's start with working through some questions that can help us define our brand. What do you value most, today and for the future? What are your passions? What fields most excite you? How do you like to work? Are you an introvert, an extrovert, so forth and so on? Ideally, you'll be able to run these ideas, this brand statement, by people who are close to you, that are honest, open, and care to make you better, than make you feel better. And I can't emphasize enough of that. You need to have honest communication and honest relationships as you grow your personal brand. Many of you have already done something like this when you created your personal brand, when you created your personal statement for college or grad school. It's a good place to go back to reference. See how it's the same and note how it is different. Now we layer in what makes us unique. It will be essential to understand and be proud of what you have achieved, your expertise. And whenever possible, do some work on what parts of your brand and experience you wish to come forth in interviews and meetings. Simple example from my own life. When I first interviewed for a role at Walt Disney's ABC radio division, I had gone through a few steps and was preparing to sit with the top ad sales executive for the network division. I was not a marketing or media major, nor is St. Joe's known really in the media industry. I leaned on my passion as an English literature major to learn about many different subjects, and I impressed people about my ability to communicate. I spoke often of the work that I put in as a scholarship student to underscore both my intelligence and my work ethic. I had a good understanding of the company through research, and I brought that forward as much as possible. So I began to move through the interview process, getting closer to this top executive. And asking the woman who ran recruitment about this executive, she mentioned, "You two should get along fine. He's Irish like you. He loves to wear green on St. Patrick's Day." It was a simple thing, but I made sure that my time with St. Joe's Gaelic Society was brought up in our interview. We connected beyond my resume, and I spoke about how my family and my background meant so much to me. It was a connection that was authentic in that interview, and it helped me get my first job at the Walt Disney Company, where I'm still 20 and a half years later. So in preparation for this conversation with you today, I started to think about my personal brand again. I've been with Walt Disney for so long, in some ways, I think that's how I branded myself. An association is fine, but it must go deeper than that. So I started to do some research, I started to do some thinking, and I started to speak to some people who mattered to me, including mentors. I work to be able to explain what I do in one sentence and be able to discuss what matters most to me. So quite simply, if someone asks me what I do, I'm an executive and a team leader who has architected success at numerous businesses at the Walt Disney Company, generating over $1 billion in revenue. And what am I good at? I'm good as a team builder, I'm a business builder, I'm a strategic planner, I'm a revenue generator, I'm a futurist, I'm a father and a husband. Hopefully, it'll go beyond that in any conversations, but at least I'm able to start from my personal brand, right, in my statement. And that's changed, obviously, since I joined the company. Because brands must evolve, and so must we. Values don't need to change, right? That's not what we're talking about here. But we must be able to react to changes in the world around us. I think of ESPN, right? That's where I spend my time day to day. We've had tremendous success in concentrating on sports. That's what we do. We serve sports fans anytime and anywhere, and it's done extremely well for us and extremely well for the Walt Disney Company. But that doesn't mean that we don't evolve to reflect and lead conversation around what matters to our fans. In the past year, we launched two things that I'm proud to be part of that serves our multicultural audiences. The first thing is we launched our first bilingual Hispanic talent-led talk show, Nació on ESPN and ESPN2. And then we launched The Undefeated, a platform which puts itself in the intersection of sports, race, and culture, specifically speaks to our African-American audience. We continue to stay true to our values, sports, but we evolve for the better, to speak specifically to our Hispanic audiences and our African-American audiences in this play. So as I prepared for this conversation, I have gotten to a point where I am sure that reviewing our personal statement and tweaking it every year is essential. So I appreciate being asked to do this because I didn't think about it beforehand, to be quite blunt. As you build your brand, I would just caution that the world is full of many visions and other brands, and they won't always mesh with yours. I think about this quote from Stephen Covey. When you show deep empathy towards others, their defensive energy goes down and positive energy replaces it. That's when you can get more creative in solving problems. You'll be much more successful if you take the time to walk in another's shoes and listen to what they say throughout your career. When I moved over from ESPN Audio to ESPN Multicultural Ad Sales, I began to work with an entirely new group of people who had experiences and values and work styles that were different from my own. It was necessary to find our common ground to succeed as an organization. I can't stress how important empathy is as you build your personal brand and work with others. So now we've created a brand, we've got to test it, we have to grow it in whatever world that we work in. It'll be essential to join networks and read and go to conferences wherever possible. Up here are just some logos of conferences and places that I spend time. I've been fortunate to sit on panels and be interviewed numerous times in my career. I always let our communications team know I'm interested in these opportunities. I also talk to our advertising clients about ways to share success stories with the trade press. It works for them and it works for me, right? So I'm learning, I'm out in the marketplace, and I'm letting people know who I am. And so just really essential, whatever you do, find out the things that matter in your world and be part of it. So a tremendous tool that we have to learn and share and grow a brand is social media. So how do we embrace social media and have it work for us? I would just suggest two things, and I am by far not an expert in this space. But the first thing I would suggest is be active, curious, and share the right content on the right channel. So what does that mean? That means blog posts and shared links work on LinkedIn and Facebook. Insightful tweets on business matters work for Twitter. Educational videos on Instagram and YouTube make some sense. The second thing is for me, personally, much more important though. Be clear on what is business and what is personal. And we need to assume that anything we put on social media will be seen by those in our professional world, whether we want them or not. So I just spend time and think about that before you post. I always think about this quote from Warren Buffett. It takes 20 years to build a reputation, 5 minutes to ruin it. If you think about that, you'll do things different. Regardless of where you go and at what stage of your career you are in, you want to find mentors and perhaps be a mentor yourself. You need to think of mentors not as people who can get you just a job or a raise, but as people whose experience, values, and work style you respect and are willing to be open with them and learn as you create, grow, and evolve your own brand. No one is you. You will never agree 100% with someone else all the time. As Bruce Lee said, absorb what is useful, reject what is useless, add what is specifically your own. Ideally, you will find a company whose vision and brand you respect and is full of people that you trust and can learn from. So in summary, as we work on our personal brand, we want to begin by working on a branding statement that emphasizes what is unique about you, because unique equals value. We want to be open to change as we grow. We want to have empathy for those around us. We want to be curious and active in our lives and be smart about social media. And we want to find those who can act as mentors and also be open to being a mentor ourselves. And finally, I just chose these two quotes from two very different people who had tremendous success in their fields. The first is Peter Drucker. I think Drucker's The Effective Executive is a tremendous handbook, regardless of what field you work in. He reminds us that the best way to predict our future is to create it. And then Lin-Manuel Miranda's success with Hamilton the Musical is a prime example of staying true to your vision. He reminds us that this life is ours. It's ours to play and work in. I offer you the best of luck. I hope this has helped you a little. And I think that we're all in places where every day we're building and evolving our personal brand. So I appreciate the time, Dee. I appreciate the time for everybody on the phone.
Well, thank you so much, John. We'll now go ahead and take some time for questions. Just as a reminder, please be sure to type your questions in the chat box. I'll go ahead and start off first. I'm curious what or who you think are the biggest influencers are out there. What influencers and blogs do you specifically follow?
Yeah, so I think that, I referenced earlier the idea of being kind of active in the space. So, for instance, I'm in the advertising field, so trades that I follow both digitally, socially, as well as, read, is things like Adweek and Brand Week and the sports side, Synopsis, Sports Business Journal. On LinkedIn, I think I have maybe 200 or 300 folks that I follow on a regular basis. And what I do is I just try to gather as much intelligence out there as possible and glean some insights that I can use. And then a lot of it is people that over the last 20 years that I've learned to trust. So it's not so much who I follow on social media as it is who I spend like my time with when I can. And some of those people are people that were my bosses at certain levels. Some of them are my bosses today. But also there's people that I can learn things from. Some of them are on my team that they report to me, but I feel like I'm constantly learning. And so what's really important to me is that we need to find the things that are important to us and the people that matter to us and make sure we stay connected. Because a lot of the people that I spend time with, I don't work with anymore, right? Because careers take you in different places and we're not always going to work together. I think the group that I started with 20 plus years ago at ABC Radio, I think there are 2 of us that are still with the company, right? Okay. But there are like 8 that I spend time with still. Right, and so that's just it's important. So I think I can't answer the question for anybody's career or marketplace that they're in, but the most important thing is to find those that you trust and make sure that regardless of location that you spend time with them.
Right, and that's so important because there's just so much information and so many knowledge out there. So you want to make sure that you're able to select the ones that specifically speak to your interests and your expertise.
Yeah, and I'd also say that there's some people out there, particularly in the business that I'm in, that I have learned that they make a career of being quoted, and that's not the same thing as being valuable. Right? It has worked for them in some cases, then sometimes it doesn't work. But again, it's like go back, what matters to you, and find those that can help you with that.
And do you interact with those influencers or the bloggers online through various platforms? Are you active in that sense?
Yeah, I'm not, Dee, we've spoken about this before, obviously. I think you would be much better to speak to this. I'm a little bit old school in terms of the use of new technology. I think of LinkedIn as my kind of professional digital path. I don't do a lot on Twitter, to be honest, with this group. Facebook, I think mostly as a personal medium. Instagram, Snapchat, the same. But I know that there are those in my company and my company itself in which we have dedicated people that spend a lot of time across all of those social channels and get a lot of value out of it. And then our talent, they do a tremendous job of re-amplifying their brand on a regular basis through mostly Twitter. So, again, I think, like, if I was to do that, I'd probably spend a little bit more time on Twitter.
Okay. It looks like we have a few questions. Paige asks, what is your best piece of advice for a young person or a student that wishes to get into the media industry?
So, media industry has been disrupted greatly by companies like Facebook and Google, and probably will be disrupted even more by Amazon. I would become an ad tech expert, and then I would go and try to find some place inside those companies, to be very blunt. If that is not of interest to you, which is more than fair, then I would go find a company whose product you really like. I love sports. I always have. I love working for ESPN. And then beyond that, I just love what Walt Disney does as a company, whether it's the Marvel brand or the Disney brand or the Pixar brand, right, or the ESPN brand or the ABC brand. So I love that. I'm very proud to be able to talk to our advertising community about that. But if I was going to start today, and I tell people this every time that I talk to them, I would become an ad tech expert, and then I would sort of find a path there.
What are some companies, other than Walt Disney, obviously, whose products that you admire?
NBC.
NBC, okay.
Yeah, NBC Universal. They do a lot around a lot of different brands. In my space, in the multicultural space, I love what they do with Telemundo. And so that, but also, whether it is news, CNBC, or whether it is like they're just the NBC entertainment channel, I appreciate that. There are brands in the world of media that I spend time with that don't really help us in the advertising community, like Netflix. I spend a lot of time on Netflix because I love their content. but like that doesn't really, they don't
right.
sell, they take eyeballs away from basic linear TV. And I would say that, and this is probably for any field that you're in, what it was 10 years ago is not what it is today, and it won't be that 10 years from now. So you got to make sure that you're thinking about the future. And that's why I put that quote from Drucker in there about the best way to predict the future is to create it. You need to understand like what people are doing in the industry that you're part of, and then find your world there. And hopefully it connects well with your values and what you want to bring to the table.
Thank you so much for that. And to quote Paige here, she says, many millennials are connected to the job more so than the company. So she really appreciates the advice you've just shared with us. And she's also asking, do you have any examples of how people blend the personal and the professional on social media and do it well, or maybe not so well?
Yeah, I think there's a woman in our industry by the name of Wendy Clark. She worked at Coca-Cola, and now she's the CEO of an agency, DDB. She is a tremendous example of one whose entire being is both personally beneficial for her and those that connect with her, and professionally.
Okay. What was her name?
Wendy Clark.
Okay, Wendy Clark. Right. Thank you so much for that. I've personally found it helpful to, particularly on platforms that are more personal, like you've mentioned, Facebook, or particularly Facebook is conducive to that because you can actually limit the privacy, it has certain privacy settings, and you can limit the audience so that, that sort of helps you with, separating the personal from the professional a little bit. So we encourage you to please type in your questions through the chat icon if you have any. I'm curious, Don, where do you see the biggest opportunity for individuals to build their personal brands?
That's a good question. I appreciate that. I guess I would attempt to answer that by going back to this idea of your branding statement, right? Like the opportunity is, who are you? What do you want to do, and then how do you go about doing that? And I think that as long as you stay true to that, so what happens in all of our jobs and all of our lives is that the day-to-day often eats up our time, right? And so when we're off the job and then we're with the personal, you're like, I want to get done. I want to get done with what I got to do, and I do my check off, my to-do list, and then you realize you look up and it's 6 months later, a year later, 2 years later, and you haven't spent any time in, again, reconnecting with people, going to conferences, learning, and things like that. I think the biggest opportunity is make sure that you find time during the week to take a breath and make sure it's about you. We do training a lot at ESPN, and what we talk about is that we're training you to be a better you. It will help us for as long as you're with us, but at one point you may not be with us. But if you do this seriously, it's going to help you there. And so I would just say that, any opportunity to learn, even if it means that, you got to spend a little bit more time at work, maybe do things over weekends or nights or however your schedules, is probably worth it. And if you get to the time where it's not worth it, you may want to spend a little time thinking about, are you in the right place? Right. And that's really important.
And then that goes back to your point about the brand itself evolving because, your interests, the things that really, inspire you might change over time.
And I just one of the reasons that I joined the multicultural group was when the company asked me about it, I spent a little time. I'm from Brooklyn and I live in Queens, and I just see the demographics of the United States, right? And I understand that we live in a diverse world. And then I did a little research, and I was looking at how obviously the Hispanic population is driving growth in so many arenas in this company and in this country, and I thought that would be interesting and it would be valuable for me to learn. And also, it was a space that I was not comfortable in, and that was important too. My Spanish is horrible, as everybody on my team will tell me, and I didn't know a lot about soccer when I began, and that's an essential sport in our world with our Hispanic fans. And so it caused me to work and to learn and to be in spaces and work working with people that I didn't really know, and it's been tremendous for me.
And subscribe to Duolingo, where I know you're learning some
I'm up
Spanish.
to, I'm on 5 days in a row. I'm very proud of myself. I have 5 day streak. My daughter has a 64-day streak, so she is in a very good place.
Fantastic.
Mi español es horrible.
Let's see. Okay, so we have another incoming question. It says here, social media is so popular now when it comes to marketing and personal branding, and so many markets are so oversaturated. How do you differentiate yourself from other brands in a similar field?
Yeah, that's a really good question, right? So I think it goes back to this idea of be you, and be you all the time. Don't be others, right? So if everyone's, like in my world, everybody's posting about one thing, then you don't have to do that, right? Everybody wants to talk about a new product or a new show. You're probably not going to bring anything valuable to the conversation. Find your white space and live in there and be the expert in there, right?
That's great advice. Exactly, authenticity. My question is, are there any brands that, I'm thinking, are there any brands that you think are not good or not effective, but they're out there as strong brands?
Yes, I do. There's a bunch. It's mostly my personal likes and dislikes. But yeah, I think we have one of them who lives in Washington, D.C. right now.
That's actually what prompted this question.
To be blunt, he has done a tremendous job. It's remarkable of overcoming any real qualifications for what he does by being super true to who he is. It's remarkable. To me, it is the greatest branding, and regardless of what you think, it's remarkable. It's remarkable what has happened, and regardless of what you think, yes or no, in agreement or in disagreement with the things that he has said, it is the great branding job in the last 20 years.
All right, well, thank you for that authentic answer. What do you wish you'd known at the start of your career?
I think the things we've been talking about, to be blunt. Be more active, right? So when I started, I had so much to learn, and a lot of it was day-to-day stuff, and I found myself getting wrapped up into that. And my first boss was that executive I had talked about, and he would always talk to me about, hey, let's go meet with this client here, let's go meet with this client there, and oh, by the way, I work with this person really closely. You should find the people in that group that kind of are at your peer level and spend time with them. And as I did that, I was learning so much, and I was building my network, and those are people that are at the higher levels now, and I was able to grow with them. And again, a lot of it was like, I was working 10, 12 or more hours a day, and I was like, I just want to go home, right? And he always impressed upon me the just find time outside of your day-to-day to grow your network, and that was really helpful, and I've continued to do that.
So, these are all really wonderful insights. So, importance of self-care, being authentic, being yourself, being curious, really, letting mentors hold your hand and stepping out of your comfort zone, just so that, you can learn and grow as a person. Paige is asking, what's next for you? Do you ever think about that?
Yeah, I'm actually going through that right now with my bosses about a new opportunity inside the company that mixes some of the things that I've done in the past and some of the things that I've learned recently, so I'm excited about that. I would in an ideal world, but this doesn't fit for everyone. I know particularly with younger people, and it's not really a younger or older thing. I would like to stay at the Walt Disney Company. I really love the company. I love the brand. I don't know if that'll happen, but I'd like to I never had a job for more than 4 years inside the company. I never did one specific thing for more than 4 years. So I know when we did the introduction, I did one thing, and then, I did another thing. But inside there, I've had, 7 different jobs. And some of them for 2-3 years, and some a little longer. and that's important for all of us.
Okay. Do we have any other questions? Okay. So I will wait a couple of seconds to see if there are any other incoming questions. All right. So I'll go ahead and review a few of our upcoming events. First of all, I'd like to thank everyone for being here. We really appreciate you being here. We have 2 upcoming talks in our personal wellness and professional success webinar series. First one is slated on Monday, May 8th at 3 p.m., featuring professor and psychologist Dr. Anissa Moody on the topic of job burnout and how to notice it and take action. The second is with SJC alumna Dr. Laura Van Schaik-Harmon, taking place on July 19th with a focus on managing anxiety. Free of charge, you can sign up for both webinars on our website. We also welcome any ideas for future webinar topics and feedback, so please feel free to contact us directly at the email on your screen. All of our alumni are also welcome to attend our annual Spring Reunion Weekend activities taking place from April 27th through April 30th. Our schedule of reunion events are listed on your screen and include a host of events that cater to alumni of all ages and interests. This year's reunion is extra special as we're also celebrating the closing of our centennial year. Please note that our Reunion Eve reception on April 28th is bringing together our young alumni and graduating seniors for an evening of live music, food, and drinks in Midtown Manhattan. And it'll also feature star of MTV's Guy Code and our alumnus Christy Stefano as special guests. Tickets are selling out fast, so we encourage you to reserve early. I also would like to mention our professional mentoring program that connects our current students and alumni in career transition with mentors in their desired career fields. The program is a great way to gain firsthand experience and knowledge and network with professionals in your desired field. For our mentors, and John here is also one of our mentors, so it's a meaningful opportunity to share your personal and professional journey and open the door for career awareness and advice for an aspiring St. Joseph's College mentee. So for more information about the program, please visit the link on your screen or email me or my colleague Taryn with any questions. Finally, please don't forget to connect with us. We are on social media, where we regularly post alumni events and news from the college. I'd like to once again thank you, John,
Thank you.
For your helpful insights on how to create and develop a unique personal brand. And I'd like to thank all of you for joining us today, and we will see you next time. Thank you.